Hello everyone. So we have to start from here. The governor listened and smiled. He had taken German in the sixth form himself, and he remembered all about the agreements of adjectives. And so did McLeary, by the sound of things. For the minister's pronunciation was most impressive. But what about Evans? He probably didn't know what an adjective was. So in these lines, what happens that the governor listened and smiled because he had taken German as a language when he was in 6th class. He remembered about the adjectives and so did McLary. The phone rang again. The magistrate's court. They needed a prison van and a couple of prison officers. Remand case. And within 2 minutes, the governor was wondering whether that could be a hoax. He told himself not to be so silly. His imagination was beginning to run riot. So here hoax means prank. So what happens that meanwhile he received a call from the magistrate's court. There was a need of a prison van and some officers as there was a remand case. Within the next 2 minutes, the governor thought it to be a fake call, but then he thought that he was thinking too much. His imagination was getting out of control. Evans. For the first quarter of an hour, Stephens had dutifully peered through the peephole at intervals of 1 minute or so, and after that, every 2 minutes. At 10:45 a.m., everything was still all right as he looked through the peephole once more. It took 4 or 5 seconds, no more. What was the point? It was always more or less the same. Evans, his pen between his lips, sat staring straight in front of him towards the door, seeking, it seemed, some sorely needed inspiration from somewhere. So, for the first 15 minutes, Stephens had looked into the cell through the peephole after a gap of every 1 minute and then after a gap of 2 minutes. At 10:45 am, everything seemed normal when he looked through the hole. So there was no difference and it remained the same as always. Evans was always chewing his pen and looking at the front. And opposite him, McLeary, seated slightly askew from the table now, his face in semi profile, his hair, as Stephens had noticed earlier, amateurishly clipped pretty closely to the scalp, his eyes behind the pebble lenses peering short sightedly at the church times, his right index finger hooked beneath the narrow clerical collar and the fingers of the left hand, the nails meticulously manicured, slowly stroking the short black beard. Here there are some words which means are askew means tilted or angled, semi profile means partly turned, and amateurish means beginner, meticulously means carefully, and manicured means well cared or tidy. So, in the next lines, it is that McLeary, always seated on his chair, a bit tilted on one side, with his face partly turned. Stephens had noticed him earlier that his hair was cut very short near the scalp. He was reading the church times through his spectacles and His first finger was under his collar. The fingers of the left hand were nicely manicured. He was softly touching his black beard. At 10:50 a.m., the receiver crackled to life and the governor realized he had almost forgotten Evans for a few minutes. Evans, please, sir, a whisper. Evans, please, sir, louder. Evans, would you mind if I put a blanket round me? Soldier, sir, it is a bit parky in here, isn't it? Silence. Evans, there's one on me bunk there, sir. McLeary. Be quick about it. Silence. Crackled means crack or sizzle, and parky means cold. So at 10:50 a.m., the phone rang, and after a while, the governor found that he had almost forgotten about Evans. He then heard Evans seeking permission from the supervisor to wrap a blanket around his shoulder, and he was feeling cold there. McLeary allowed him. At 10:51 a.m., Stephens was more than a little surprised to see a grey regulation blanket draped round Ivan's shoulders, and he frowned slightly and looked at the examinee more closely. But Evans, the pen still between his teeth, was staring just as vacantly as before, blankly beneath a blanket. Should Stephens report the slight irregularity? Anything all fishy, hadn't Jackson said. He looked through the peephole once again, and even as he did so, Evans pulled the dirty blanket more closely to himself. Was he planning a sudden Batman leap to suffocate McLeary in the blanket? Don't be a daft. There was never any sun on the side of the prison, no heating either during the summer months, and it could get quite chilly in some of the cells. Stephens decided to revert to his earlier every minute observation. Her frowned means make a face, fishy means doubtful thing, suffocate means breathless, revert means return to. So what happens? At 10:50 a.m., Stephens opened the peephole and was surprised to see Evans sitting with a blanket on his shoulders. It seemed strange to him, and he even thought of reporting Jackson for this new change he had noticed. He again looked at him and noticed that Evans pulled the dirty blanket close to himself. Now Stephens was getting doubtful about Evans. He even thought that he could harm McLeary by suffocating him with his blanket. But then he told himself that he should not behave so foolish, as there is no sun on this side of prison, not even in summers. And he also thought that it is normal to the sails gets chilly, and so he decided to return back to his every minute check through the peephole. At 11:20 a.m., the receiver once more crackled around across the silence of the governor's office, and McLeary informed Evans that only 5 minutes remained. The examination was almost over now, but something still gnawed away quietly in the governor's mind. He reached for the phone once more. A nod means chew. So at 11:20 a.m., once again, The governor's phone rang. Meanwhile, McLeary told Evans that only few minutes were left for the exam to be completed. Governor was still doubtful about something, but he went to receive the call. At 11:22 a.m., Jackson shouted along the corridor to Stephens. The governor wanted to speak with him. Hurry, man. Stephens picked up the phone apprehensively and listened to the rapidly spoken orders. Stephens himself was to accompany McLeary to the main prison gates. Understood? Stephens personally was to make absolutely sure that the door was locked on Evans after McLeary had left the cell. Understood? Understood. At 11:25 a.m., the governor heard the final exchange. So at 11:20 a.m., once again the governor's phone rang. Meanwhile, McLeary told Evans that only 5 minutes were left for the exam to be completed. And governor was still doubtful about something, but he went to receive the call. And at 11:22, Jackson shouted to Stephens as the governor wanted to talk to him. He ran up and listened carefully to each and every order to him. It was his duty to accompany McLeary to the main gate of the prison. Stephens had to be fully assured about Evans' cell being properly locked. When McLeary left it at 11:25 a.m., the governor heard the final talks between Evans and McLeary. McLeary, stop writing, please. Silence. McLeary, put your seats in order and see they are correctly numbered. Silence. Scraping of chairs and tables. Evans, thank you very much, sir. Right, who's it? Evans, not too bad. McLeary, good. Mr. Stephens, very loud. The governor heard the door clang for the last time. The examination was over. So here, McLeary asked Evans to stop writing. He also told him to arrange his seats in order. Then, the sound of the movement of chairs was heard. Evans said thank you to McLeary. He queried as to how his exam was. Evans replied that it was not too bad. He then called Mr. Stephens. The governor heard the final shutting down of the door. The exam was over. How did he get on, do you think? Asked Stephens as he walked beside McLeary to the main gates. Stephen asked McLeary, did Evans' exam go well? Okay, I can't think he's distinguished himself. I'm afraid. His Scots accent seemed broader than ever, and his long black overcoat, reaching almost to his knees, fostered the illusion that he had suddenly grown slimmer. So there was a doubt about McLeary because his Scottish accent seemed a bit different from the earlier one, and he said that he didn't think so. So, moreover, his overcoat was now reaching close to his knees, leading to the imagination that he had suddenly turned slim. Stephens felt pleased that the governor had asked him and not Jackson to see McLeary off the premises, and all in all the morning had gone pretty well. But something stopped him from making his way directly to the canteen for a belated cup of coffee. He wanted to take just one last look at Evans. It was like a program he had seen on TV about a woman who could never really convince herself that she had locked the front door, and when she had gone to bed, often she had got up 12, 15, sometimes 20 times to check the bolts. So Stephens was happy as the governor chose him over Jackson to accompany McLeary off the premises. Everything was done fine this day, he thought. He stopped him from going to the canteen from an overdue cup of coffee. He wanted to see Evans for one last time. It seemed to him like a TV program in which the lady is never sure of locking the door before going to bed, and she would get up 12, 15, or every 20 times to check the bolts. He re-entered made his way along to Ivan's cell and opened the peephole once more. Oh no! Christ! No! There, sprawled back in Ivan's chair, was a man. For a semi-second, Stephens thought it must be Evans. A grey regulation blanket slipping from his shoulders, the front of his closely cropped, irregularly tufted hair, awash with fierce red blood which had dripped already through the small black beard and was even now spreading horribly over the white clerical collar and down into the black clerical front. So Stephens again entered into the D wing, and he once again opened the peephole of Ivan's cell. When he looked inside through it, he cried, "Oh Christ!" as he was shocked to see the situation inside. For a few seconds he thought it was Stephens on his chair, but it was not so. The churchman was lying back. His hair was soaked in blood. The blood was flowing down horribly from his beard to his collar and then on his black overcoat. So, students, I am going to stop here and we will meet again in the next video. Thank you very much.